Welcome back to Zero to Hero. My name's Ethan, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the importance of setting up an emergency fund to cover life's unexpected expenses. And if you don't have one set up, it's super critical that you do, and I'll tell you why. So keep on watching. Welcome back. In this video, I wanted to talk about the importance of an emergency fund. Most Americans don't have much or any emergency fund set up. Very few people have the ability to even cover a small expense that comes up. I think a lot of the reports I've seen are really startling. In fact, that they state that a lot of Americans can't even cover a $400 unexpected expense. And to me, that is absolutely alarming. $400 isn't that much of an expense when you consider all the things that are going to go wrong in life. Your car's going to break down, your water heater's going to break, something's going to go wrong, with your furnace. We know that these things are going to happen in life. People call them unexpected things, but they really aren't. The only thing unexpected is we don't know the timing of them. So things are going to go wrong in your life. Things are going to go south every once in a while, and you don't want to be in a position where you can't cover an expense that comes up that's kind of out of the ordinary. And that's why it's super critical to have an emergency fund. A lot of people spend all the money that they have at the end of the month, so they don't have anything left over to save, much less invest. And I think that is absolutely crazy. If you are one of those people, you need to seriously take a look at your spending habits, because odds are you do have extra money left at the end of the month if you choose to have it. In other words, your basic living expenses are going to be less than what you're bringing in through your job, through your income, or through your business revenue. So it's super important to save some every month, to have some left over. If you can do that, you need to set some aside into an emergency fund that you don't touch. Now, when you set up an emergency fund, what I would recommend is using a separate bank account to keep those emergency funds separate from your normal checking and savings account. If you just say, well, I'm going to keep an extra $400 or $500 in or $1,000, whatever the amount is, in your checking or savings account, it's much more easier for you to access that, and you're much more likely to spend it on a non-emergency item. That's why I recommend setting up a separate account somewhere in a different bank, ideally, to put your emergency savings there. And don't touch those savings unless an actual emergency comes up. You'll feel so much better by having an emergency fund when things do happen, that you can just write a check from that account. That the money's already there, so it's super critical that you set that up. A lot of experts recommend that you have 3 months or more of your living expenses in an emergency fund. Now, that may seem like a lot to you, but if you look at your actual monthly expenses that are required for you to live, it's not all the money that you're bringing in through your job, through your regular income stream. You need to take a look at the basic things that are required to sustain and support your life. Things like paying rent, paying your mortgage, buying food at a grocery store, not going out to eat, putting gas in your vehicle. Those kind of expenses are your cost of living, essentially. Those are the required expenses. So experts recommend that you have at least 3 months worth of those basic expenses saved up. If you don't have that, you obviously probably are not in a situation where you can just, overnight, tomorrow or next month, come up with those 3 months worth of living expenses, but you can do that over a longer period of time. If you say, over the next year, you're going to set a goal of saving enough every month so you can get up to a place where you have a couple months of emergency savings saved up. That's how you do it. You just have to apply discipline every single month and put some extra money aside into that emergency savings fund, and you can build that up over time. So whether it's a year or 2 years out, whatever your target is for getting that emergency fund set up, start to do it today, this month. Put some money away each month until you get the emergency fund to where it needs to be. Now, the old rule of 3 months of living expenses in an emergency fund is actually outdated. After the financial crisis of 2007 and 2008, a lot of experts upped their recommendation for an emergency fund to between 6 to 9 months of living expenses. And the reason for that is that during the financial crisis, a lot of people lost their jobs. And when they lost their jobs, it on average was taking people 6 to 12 months to find a new job if they were able to find one. And so with that long lead time, experts thought it was important to have people increase the size of their emergency funds. And that's one reason you should have an emergency fund. You don't know what's going to happen with your job next month, next year. I know as an employee, it feels like, your job brings stability. But from my perspective, being a small business owner, I know that there are no guarantees in life. And I know that for myself, I do the absolute best I can to make sure that our company is always in a good financial, situation where we never need to let anybody off because of a downturn in sales. But not all companies are like that. Not all companies have essentially a reserve. If you are laid off, I mean, you are essentially given almost zero notice, and your whole life can just be upended. I mean, your expenses don't stop the day you get laid off. The bills keep coming in, and you still have to live. And that is a huge shock to a lot of people if they don't have savings. I mean, if you don't have savings and get laid off and you can't find a job right away, you're in serious trouble. If you still have to cover all the monthly expenses, you're in a super bad position. Some people end up taking loans from their credit cards to get high interest loans from different sources, and that's not a good thing. You don't want to be in that position. You don't have to move out of your apartment or your house or sell it just because you lost your job. You want to be in a good position where you can weather the storms that are going to come along in life when they do, because they're not unexpected. Like I said, they're going to happen. Bad things are going to happen in this life, financially and otherwise. And I think it's important for all of us to take personal responsibility for ourselves, for our families, to do what we can, financially speaking, to develop a reserve, a buffer to cover things that are unexpected or we wouldn't like to have happen, that we don't want to have happen. They're not unexpected, like I said, they're going to happen. So it's super important to develop an emergency savings fund. Now, some of that emergency savings fund, I think, is important to have in cash, not just in the bank. And I'll do another video about why it's important to have some of your emergency savings in cash. So watch for that video when it comes out. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a little bit about this, and if you don't have an emergency fund, it's super important to start one and to get your place of financial stability and safety. That emergency savings is essentially a lifeline for when things go wrong in life. So it's really critical that you build one, and you can do it over time. You don't need to do it, within a week or a month. You can do it over the next year or two, depending on how much you want to save. So get started today. If you don't have one, it's super, super critical. Like I said, I hope you found this information useful, and watch my other videos on money, finance, and wealth, because I'll be sharing some of the tips that I've learned the hard way that can hopefully help you. I for many years, I didn't have an emergency savings, and I got hit hard, and I had to take advances from my credit cards, and I paid a lot in interest, and I don't want that to happen to you. So I want to help you by giving you advice that can help you without you having to learn things the hard way like I did. So anyway, if you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to get notified when I come out with new videos. So anyway, we'll see you next time.